What's up, guys? This is Chris from DraftDashboard.com.
Here are my DFS picks for MLB Monday, April 11th.
These picks apply for DraftKings and FanDuel. Before I get started, please drop a like on this video and hit that red subscribe button
And hit that bell icon.
so you don't miss our new videos.
In this video, I'm going to go over my top DFS picks for today's MLB slate.
And if you stick around to the very end of this video, we'll use the Draft Dashboard tools to make a DFS lineup using the picks we just made.
Okay guys, we have a 7-game slate tonight, so let's take a look at the pitcher position. I like Alex Wood pitching against the San Diego Padres. Alex Wood is only giving up a .691 OPS versus righties. He's facing 5 righties here tonight. And actually, Alex Wood, he's a balanced pitcher. He gives up just about the same OPS to all hands. .684 versus lefties, .691 versus righties, and .689 versus switch hitters, facing 3 lefties, 5 righties, 1 switch hitter. But on top of that, the Padres have only hit 7 of his last 29 pitches, so that's a .241 batting average. Alex Wood is $9,200 FanDuel salary, the same price on DraftKings. He had an ERA of 3.83 on the season last year. His record is 10-4, pitching an average of 84 pitches per game. And he averaged 30 fantasy points per game on the season last year. So I like Alex Wood here versus the San Diego Padres. Okay, another pitcher that I like is Alek Manoah with an 11% pitching advantage over the New York Yankees. Alek Manoah, he pitches 11% better versus righties as he does lefties. So he pitches his best ball to righty batters, and he's only giving up a .488 OPS versus righties, and he's facing 6 righties here tonight. And on top of that, the Yankees have only hit 6 of his last 32 pitches. That's a .188 batting average. Alek Manoah is $9,900 FanDuel salary, $300 more on DraftKings. He had an ERA of 3.22 last year. His record was 9-2 on the season, pitching an average of 92 pitches per game. And he averaged 35 fantasy points per game on the season last year. So I like Alek Manoah here versus the New York Yankees. And actually comparing the two, I like Alek Manoah quite a bit more, even though Alex Wood is facing a much weaker batting team. But Alek Manoah looks to have the Yankees number, and he sure does have those splits, only giving up .488 OPS versus righties, facing 6 righties. I love to see that. So I think Alek Manoah is going to have a big day here tonight. So I would probably just pay up a little bit more. It looks like $700 more on FanDuel, and a little bit more than that, about $1,000 more on DraftKings. But I would probably just pay up for Alek Manoah unless you really need to squeeze that salary into your lineup. Then Alex Wood is in a pretty decent spot. Okay, let's take a look at the catcher first base position. So we had him as our home run hitter yesterday. He scored 22 fantasy points, and I like him here again today. I like Vladimir Guerrero Jr. with a 12% batting advantage over Jameson Taillon. Vladimir Guerrero Jr. is batting 11% better versus righty pitchers, batting a 1.054 OPS versus righties, and Jameson Taillon, he's giving up a .731 OPS versus righties. But I like this pick because Vladimir Guerrero Jr. is 3 for 7, batting a .429 batting average, and a 1.429 OPS versus Taillon. And Guerrero Jr. is $4,500 FanDuel salary, $1,600 more on DraftKings, projected at 13.7 fantasy points here tonight. He averaged 13 fantasy points per game on the season last year, so I like Vladimir Guerrero Jr. here versus Jameson Taillon. Okay, now this guy, take a look at these stats right here. Okay, he's eligible on FanDuel, is eligible at catcher, first base, and at the outfield position. So super versatile. And just take a look at this guy. Kyle Schwarber, he's got a 13% batting advantage over Taijuan Walker. Kyle Schwarber, he's batting 23% better versus righty pitchers, batting a 1.004 OPS versus righties. Now, Taijuan Walker throws pretty good to lefties, only giving up a .678 OPS versus lefties. But take a look at this. Kyle Schwarber is 5 for 13, batting a .385 batting average with a 1.967 OPS versus Walker. I had to do a double take on this one because all 5 of those hits were home runs. That is unbelievable to me that all 5 of his 13 hits against Taijuan Walker were home runs. So Kyle Schwarber looks like he's got Taijuan Walker's number. If he hits that ball, watch out. Kyle Schwarber is $3,500 FanDuel salary, $1,800 more on DraftKings, projected at 10.7 fantasy points here tonight. He averaged 12 fantasy points per game on the season last year. So I like Kyle Schwarber here versus Taijuan Walker. Okay, I also like Jared Walsh with an 82% batting advantage over Elieser Hernandez. Jared Walsh is batting 43% better versus righty pitchers, batting a .969 OPS versus righties. And Elieser Hernandez, he pitches 39% worse to lefties as he does righties, giving up a .985 OPS versus lefties. Now, there's no at-bats versus Hernandez yet, and Jared Walsh's $3,400 FanDuel salary, $1,300 more on DraftKings, projected at 10.9 fantasy points here tonight, and he averaged 11 fantasy points per game on the season last year. Vegas thinks there's going to be 9.5 runs scored in this game. That's their over-under. So I like Jared Walsh here versus Elieser Hernandez.
Before I continue with the picks, I'm excited today because we added a new contest for everyone watching. If you want to enter the drawing for $25 PayPal, all you need to do is like this video, hit that subscribe button, and make a quick comment below to be entered into the drawing. We'll reply to a random comment and let you know that you won. And we'll send you $25 PayPal. So it's that easy, and we pick a new winner every Saturday and announce them in our video. So get your comment in now so I can add another entry for you.
So Josh Bell, I just caught this guy. Looks like he's in a pretty good spot as a value play. He's got a 33% batting advantage over Huascar Ynoa. Josh Bell is batting a .807 OPS versus righties. And Huascar Ynoa, he pitches his worst ball versus switch hitters. 35% worse than his other pitches, giving up a .935 OPS versus switch hitters. And Josh Bell is 2 for 5, batting .400 with a 1 OPS versus Ynoa. He's only $2,800 FanDuel salary, $1,000 more on DraftKings, projected at 10 fantasy points here tonight, averaged 10 fantasy points per game on the season last year. Vegas thinks there's going to be 9.5 runs scored in this game, so I like Josh Bell here versus Huascar Ynoa. Okay, now here's another value play. Take a look at Ji-Man Choi with a 45% batting advantage over a low-salary pitcher, Paul Blackburn. Ji-Man Choi is batting 34% better versus righty pitchers, batting a .850 OPS versus righties, and Paul Blackburn throws his worst ball versus switch hitters, 11% worse than his other pitches, giving up a .974 OPS versus switch hitters. So good splits there, and Ji-Man Choi is only $2,400 FanDuel salary, $1,600 more on DraftKings, projected at 10.9 fantasy points here tonight. He averaged 9 fantasy points per game on the season last year. So I like Ji-Man Choi here versus Paul Blackburn. Okay, let's take a look at the second base position. I like Brandon Lowe with a 33% batting advantage over that same low salary pitcher, Paul Blackburn. Brandon Lowe is batting 31% better versus righty pitchers, batting a .907 OPS versus righties, and Paul Blackburn is giving up a .880 OPS versus lefties. There's no at-bats versus Blackburn yet, but Brandon Lowe is $3,600 FanDuel salary, $1,800 more on DraftKings, projected at 11.5 fantasy points here tonight. He averaged 12 fantasy points per game on the season last year, so I like Brandon Lowe here versus Paul Blackburn. Okay, now here's another value play. Take a look at Tony Kemp with a 26% batting advantage over Luis Patino. And Tony Kemp is batting a .764 OPS versus righties. Luis Patino, he throws 22% worse to lefties as he does righties, giving up a .804 OPS versus lefties. Tony Kemp is 0 for 1 versus Patino, but super small sample size. And he's only $2,300 FanDuel salary, $1,000 more on DraftKings, projected at 10.4 fantasy points here tonight. He averaged 7 fantasy points per game on the season last year. So I like Tony Kemp as a value play here versus Luis Patino. Okay, I also like Eduardo Escobar with a 28% batting advantage over Ranger Suarez. Eduardo Escobar is batting 10% better versus lefties as he does righties. He's batting a .838 OPS versus lefty pitchers. And Ranger Suarez, he pitches 18% worse to switch hitters as he does lefties. Although his worst ball is to righty batters, he's giving up a .557 OPS versus switch hitters. And Eduardo Escobar is 2 for 3 with a .667 batting average and a 2.667 OPS versus Suarez. He's got a double and a home run. Those are his 2 hits. He's $3,000 FanDuel salary, $1,100 more on DraftKings, projected at 9 fantasy points here tonight. He averaged 10 fantasy points per game on the season last year. So I like Eduardo Escobar here versus Ranger Suarez. Okay, let's take a look at the third base position. Here's another value play. I like Joey Wendell with a 46% batting advantage over a low salary pitcher, Michael Lorenzen. Joey Wendell is batting 21% better versus righty pitchers, batting a .792 OPS versus righties, and Michael Lorenzen, he pitches his worst ball versus lefty batters, 25% worse than his other pitches, giving up a .754 OPS versus lefties. There's no at-bats versus Lorenzen yet, and Joey Wendell is only $2,200 FanDuel salary. He's $1,600 more on DraftKings, projected at 9.4 fantasy points here tonight, averaged 9 fantasy points per game on the season last year. So I like Joey Wendell here versus Michael Lorenzen. Okay, another value play. I like Luis Arraez with a small batting advantage here over Chris Flexen. Luis Arraez is batting 17% better versus righty pitchers, batting a .734 OPS versus righties, and Chris Flexen is giving up a .699 OPS versus lefties. And Luis Arraez is 3 for 5, batting .600 with a 1.267 OPS versus Flexen. He's only $2,400 FanDuel salary, $1,200 more on DraftKings, projected at 9.1 fantasy points here tonight. He averaged 8 fantasy points per game on the season last year, so I like Luis Arraez here versus Chris Flexen.
Real quick, guys, I got great news. For a limited time, we're offering a full 30-day trial to Draft Dashboard. You can try all of our DFS tools for all sports. You can try the Position Optimizer, where you can see the top players ranked for each position. And we added a new Player Trends tool, where you can see the top salary differences between FanDuel and DraftKings. It's a really good tool to help you pick out value for the site that you're playing on. Oh, and if you're tired of doing research every day, we just added a cheat sheet that shows hand-picked plays for the slate. No confusing stat lines, no headaches, just a simple cheat sheet that shows the absolute best players for your lineups.
Okay, let's take a look at the shortstop position. Okay, so I think this guy is priced way too low on FanDuel. He's priced way up on DraftKings, so this will be a FanDuel play for me only. But take a look at Brandon Crawford. With a 25% batting advantage over Nick Martinez, Brandon Crawford is batting 25% better versus righty pitchers, and he's got a .954 OPS versus righties. So he is 0 for 3 versus Martinez, but he's only $2,700 FanDuel salary. Now he's $2,500 more on DraftKings, so this would be a FanDuel play for me only. Projected at 12.1 fantasy points here tonight. Averaged 11 fantasy points per game on the season last year. And what is his batting average? He's got a batting average of .298. So great batting average, good splits, and the salary is just way too low for this guy's upside. So I like Brandon Crawford on FanDuel here versus Nick Martinez. Now, a guy that I think is priced too low on DraftKings is Thairo Estrada with a 24% batting advantage over that same low salary pitcher, Nick Martinez. Because Thairo Estrada, he's batting 24% better versus righty pitchers, batting a .913 OPS versus righties. Now, he is only $2,400 FanDuel salary, so I like that FanDuel price. But he's only $200 more on DraftKings, so I think he's priced too low on DraftKings. So I guess I would go Thairo Estrada on DraftKings and Brandon Crawford on FanDuel. So I like both of those guys, but let's move on here. Another guy that I like at the shortstop position is J.P. Crawford with a 9% batting advantage over a low salary pitcher, Dylan Bundy. J.P. Crawford is batting a .696 OPS versus righty pitchers, and Dylan Bundy throws his worst ball versus lefty batters, giving up a .946 OPS versus lefties. And I like this player versus batter versus pitcher history here. J.P. Crawford is 7 for 16, batting a .438 batting average and a 1 OPS versus Bundy. That's a pretty big sample size, and J.P. Crawford is only $2,600 FanDuel salary. He's $1,200 more on DraftKings, projected at 8.9 fantasy points here tonight. Averaged 9 fantasy points per game on the season last year. So I like J.P. Crawford here versus Dylan Bundy. And did we give you Joey Wendell already? Yeah, we did, but he's in a great spot for super cheap. Only $2,200 on FanDuel. He just sticks out as a really good value play on FanDuel. Eligible at third base and shortstop with a 46% batting advantage here over Michael Lorenzen. So I really like that Joey Wendell pick on FanDuel. But let's take a look at the outfield position. Here's your home run hitter or your stud pick, whatever you want to call him. I like Shohei Ohtani with a 43% batting advantage over Elieser Hernandez. Shohei Ohtani is batting a .957 OPS versus righty pitchers, and Elieser Hernandez is pitching 39% worse to lefties as he does righties, giving up a .985 OPS versus lefties. Now, there's no at-bats versus Hernandez yet, and Shohei Ohtani is 4,100 FanDuel salary, 1,900 more on DraftKings, projected at 11.6 fantasy points here tonight, and he averaged 13 fantasy points per game on the season last year. Vegas thinks there's going to be 9.5 runs scored in this game. That's their over-under. So I like Shohei Ohtani here versus Elieser Hernandez. Okay, now I think we had this guy. I don't think we had him as a home run hitter, but we definitely picked him yesterday, and he scored 37 fantasy points. A lot of our batters did well. Our pitchers, not so great, but our batters crushed it. That's always the problem with MLB DFS is like, sometimes I swear it's like your batters crush it, and of course, your pitcher has to go out there and blow it. Or the opposite, your pitcher crushes it, and your batters go out there and blow it. So MLB DFS, always frustrating, but that's why you just want to keep going with the good picks. And it's a long game. MLB DFS is the long game. You want to just consistently play it throughout the season, play those good players, and one of your lineups is going to hit someday. Just keep at it. Don't go crazy with your bankroll. Just remember, MLB, play it for the long game. Okay, so Byron Buxton with a 14% batting advantage over Chris Flexen. Byron Buxton is batting a .930 OPS versus righties, and Chris Flexen, he pitches 12% worse to righties as he does lefties, giving up a .793 OPS versus righties. Now, Byron Buxton is 3 for 3 with a 3.333 OPS versus Flexen. The guy hasn't missed yet, and he's 3,700 FanDuel salary, 2,200 more on DraftKings, projected at 11.7 fantasy points here tonight, averaged 14 fantasy points per game on the season last year, so I like Byron Buxton here versus Chris Flexen. I also like Jesse Winker with a 54% batting advantage over a low-salary pitcher, Dylan Bundy. Jesse Winker is batting 46% better versus righty pitchers, batting a 1.057 OPS versus righties, and Dylan Bundy throws his worst ball versus lefty batters, giving up a .946 OPS versus lefties. Now, there's no at-bats versus Bundy yet, and Jesse Winker is 3,300 FanDuel salary, 1,700 more on DraftKings, projected at 11.6 fantasy points here tonight, averaged 13 fantasy points per game on the season last year, so I like Jesse Winker here versus Dylan Bundy. Okay, and another value play. I like Brandon Marsh with a 75% batting advantage over Elieser Hernandez. Brandon Marsh bats 36% better versus righty pitchers, batting a .763 OPS versus righties, and Elieser Hernandez, he pitches 39% worse to lefties as he does righties, giving up a .985 OPS versus lefties. There's no at-bats versus Hernandez yet, but Brandon Marsh is only 2,300 FanDuel salary and only 800 more on DraftKings, so I like that price on both sites, and he's projected at 8.9 fantasy points here tonight. He averaged 7 fantasy points per game on the season last year, so I like Brandon Marsh here versus Elieser Hernandez. Oh, real quick before you get out of here, if you want daily sports betting and player prop picks, we put a link to today's video with our NBA picks in the bottom of the description of this video. It's our new YouTube channel, so we would really appreciate it if you dropped a like on that video and subscribe to that new channel so it can help us get shown in the YouTube algorithm and you won't miss those daily NBA picks.
If you want to try all these daily fantasy tools for yourself, click the link in the description below this video or just go to draftdashboard.com. You can use our DFS lineup optimizer to build quality lineups using our picks and your own custom player pool. Click the link in the description below this video and try all these daily fantasy tools right now. Thanks so much for watching. Oh, and don't forget to subscribe to this channel and hit that bell icon so you can get instant updates whenever we post a new video. Thank you so much for watching, everyone. If you enjoyed this video, please smiggity smash that like button and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Oh, and please comment below with your favorite player for this MLB slate. I love to hear what you guys have to think. Thanks again and good luck.